just a little bit about who we are. LaunchWorks, we build outward-facing portal and dashboard solutions, again based on business intelligence. We really focus on business objects and SDK development technologies, again, which allow you to use the technology you already have. We are a gold partner with Business Objects, and really we work with customers of all different sizes, both up to the Fortune 50 down to small to medium-sized businesses. Our headquarters are in San Antonio, and we've got teams actually all over North America. So we're pretty excited about this technology and really what our customers are doing with it, and so we're really happy to share some ideas, some concepts, as well as some solutions that if you're challenged with meeting these requirements could help get you to the finish line. So we're going to talk about some of the challenges with using business objects as a software as a service platform, some of the architectural considerations you need to be thinking about as you go in this endeavor, some of the do's and don'ts of integrations, some examples, including getting down to some nitty-gritty code for the developers out there, and just talk about the launch portal framework, where it fills some of the gaps, and then take your questions. And we love questions, so please feel free to throw rocks and ask the tough ones. So in terms of your challenges, we are so excited that we're seeing more and more companies that want to monetize their business intelligence. They've gotten to that point in their maturity where they're handling the reports internally with their business, and now how can we use this information as a competitive advantage in a way that we can actually provide services to our customers and partners, or actually even monetize it and charge for it. In a lot of examples, we see the competition is offering BI data out into a software as a service or external portal, and some companies really need to play catch up in this space. You may have a great software as a service application already, but you want to say, okay, how can I reuse the business intelligence technology and services I've already developed? So in most cases, your company already has an investment in business objects technology, and again, that could be Crystal, Web Intelligence, Excelsius, and you're trying to determine whether to build something from scratch or maybe buy something to glue the things together. So we'll talk about those options. So SAP does offer a robust business objects SDK. Actually, we'll touch on that in a second. There are actually 8 different SDKs, and but they're not necessarily integrated into a single application that you can just plug in as a software as a service solution. You may have, again, a software as a service platform, but most likely it does not already have business objects functionality or APIs connecting to it. I'm sure you've all got your report developers, business analysts all set up, and but not necessarily do you have the skills in portal development, web application development, or software as a service integration. And there are several different integration points that require some best practices. Things from security. So how do I merge these systems together or provide a secure facing portal that both has the look and feel of a custom portal, but having the security that integrates in with my BI data. Multi-tenancy. The hope should be that you'll have multiple customers, multiple suppliers, partners accessing the system. So how do I build a system that can handle those? Authorization. How am I going to manage IDs and passwords? These are the types of things that internally are usually pretty straightforward in terms of Windows AD or LDAP, but when you come to software as a service, you have different systems that both need to handle that authorization. And then viewing, exporting, and scheduling that information, those reports, to get that information out to the person using it. So from an architecture standpoint, again, I talked about the SDKs. The business object system that you have, again, whether this is Crystal Report Server, whether this is Edge or Enterprise, is really a series of server services running on the Windows, Linux, or Unix system. And then you've got a series of SDKs that communicate with those services, even for applications like the CMC, the InfoView, or BI Launchpad. It's sitting on top of this SDK layer. And depending if you're doing exercises around web intelligence or Crystal or working with users and security, there's different SDKs with different functionality for that. So one of the best practices that we promote is when you're developing these systems is to create what we call an SDK framework. So this is a sole and separate application that sits beside the other web applications that you get out of the box, and this will handle the types of things that you need for portal integration, authorization between a software as a service system. And the other benefit is, in addition to it sitting internally on your network, it can actually sit in different locations. So you can be handling more secure access to your business intelligence content by putting it out into a demilitarized zone on your network behind a firewall, or even out in the cloud. So especially if your software as a service system is like Salesforce.com is actually a cloud application, by creating an SDK framework, you have the ability to actually host that application as well, which again just provides more security and more flexibility in how you integrate these systems. So in terms of architectural considerations, just going a little deeper here, in terms of a security handler, so one of the things you need to think about is how do I transfer the authorization, let's say from an existing application like Salesforce.com, and how do I pass that information down into my BusinessObjects system so that that user only gets the reports and dashboards that they're supposed to see. When we talk about accessing reports, whether it's a menu or a list of reports, there are certain Webby, Crystal, or Excelsius objects that that user is supposed to see. So this is one of the handlers that needs to be developed or integrated that allows you to present that back into the software as a service or portal application so the user can log into one place and get access to all of their BI content. If you're running ad hoc reports as part of this system, then there may be prompts that are going to come up to the user to allow them to pick date ranges and pick lists of values. So what do you want this look and feel to look like? What is the type of user interaction that you want to present to that user? In a lot of cases, in the past, people kind of just use the out-of-the-box Webby and Crystal prompt views. But those are really built, again, for running inside the InfoView. They have a certain look and feel, and it's not easily customizable. When you use an SDK framework, you can have full control over the look and feel and the functionality. So you can give basic users maybe a view only of scheduled reports, but more advanced users that maybe pay more get access to prompt screens and additional features as part of your platform. Viewing and exporting, again, the expectation these days is that everyone should be able to get any data out into a PDF, out into Excel, and I'll show you some examples in a bit. We have customers that have needed PowerPoint slides to come right out of the report. So lots of different views and ways of exporting that information that can really make or break whether users will continue to come back and use this system. And then scheduling. We most often see this as more of an advanced feature given to certain users that are responsible with content subscription and distribution, because obviously your information is now worth something. People are coming to this site, people are accessing this site, either paying for it or it's part of a contract, and allowing certain people to schedule that and distribute that information can be a huge advantage, but also allowing the system to know who is accessing that information is the difference between data just flying around the internet and you knowing who is accessing your information. So again, touching on the authentication handler. So specifically, again, how are people going to log in? Is it going to be a custom login screen? Is it going to use more of a trusted authentication where you log into your software as a service or portal, and then you are passed through to your BI application? And there's different technologies of doing this, whether it be a URL get or capturing a session token or cookie representation of that user. These are the things that allow us to, again, integrate in your reports, dashboards into an application versus the antithesis is I just want the user to log into a portal and that will become my software as a service platform. So they would log in with an ID and password that they've been given, and they can then log in, manage their own password. So again, just getting into a little bit deeper. So when we talk about the business objects SDKs, we're talking about the ability to do either trusted or non-trusted authentication. So non-trusted is the user has to put in that ID and password. A trusted application, basically there's a key that is stored within your SDK framework that would then connect to the business object system. And that, along with some necessary authentication of what server you're connecting to, matching authentication types, the applications can then talk to each other. I call out here this CMS name and auth type. When you grab if you're grabbing SDK samples from somewhere, you'll see a lot of this stuff kind of hard-coded within those files. One of the best practices we work with customers on is really making sure that information is abstracted out into a metadata layer. That can just be a database or it can be an XML file within the application. But making sure that it's very, very easy for that framework to point to a business object system and not having to go actually into the code to change settings. So you'll see that across the board in the different examples we have. So in this case, the type of code, and most often we're using Java-based code, which is compatible with both the 3.x platform and the 4.0 platform, will then allow us to create this trusted link between that user's login and the business object system, again, using a shared secret code that is only known to the applications themselves. Again, and if that kind of code is scary, again, I'll show you in the end where we have some of that packaged up and very easy to integrate. So I talked about a report list, right? So thinking about how am I going to show the user my BI content? And there's several different examples we're going to touch on. Sometimes it just may be a pie graph, right, built into a screen. Other times there may be multiple reports and even folders of reports that that user has access to. How do you want to present that? Is it in a single column? Is there descriptive information about those objects that you want to show that are important? And are there different export formats that you want to give out to the user? So these are some templates that we use to, again, deliver that in a way that it's very simple to embed within a system. Some things to think about is, do you have multiple levels? What is your security layer around those reports? Do you have certain users in company A and certain users in company B that are both accessing this portal and need to access those same reports? And then again, what do you want to have happen? Do you want it to pop up in a separate window, or you want it to all run within a frame? So a key understanding again is, where are you handling that security layer? Again, you could build that into your application, or you can use the Business Objects Enterprise Security to control that. So any of the servers, again, Crystal Report Server, Edge, or Enterprise has that security, and it can be dynamically returned via a query. So once I know that this user has access to this system, I can then return the information about what reports that they have access to. And then that can be presented in the host application via some type of frame that, again, could connect to your business object system. And, this works for XIR2, 3.1, and 4.0. So when you get Business Object System, you'll get an open doc call, which will call an individual report. This report list is more where you want to show multiple reports, and as you add and remove reports, you don't have to edit code. It's automatically being updated. So it's one of the key differentiators when you're embedding BI in an application, is to make it as low maintenance as possible. So we touched on prompts. This is obviously a different look and feel than what you'd get out of the box via a Crystal or Webby report. Especially if you've got a mix of Crystal and Webby reports, you may want a common look and feel so your users are really getting a great experience. So, understanding what are your requirements. Do you need heavy searching capabilities within your prompts? Do you need cascading prompts? What is the best prompts that are going to help your users get to where they need to be? Can they be handled through the out-of-the-box prompt handlers, or do you need to design and deliver a user interface that's more friendly to the user? So key project is get something out there, start getting some feedback, look at that feedback as far as incorporating new features, and really try to keep it on the edge in terms of making sure that you're delivering innovative technologies so that your system is a level above your competition's. So again, for the developers out there, we talk about prompts. There's certain things to consider around whether they're Crystal or Webby. Is how do I get that information? How do I present that through the SDKs into a parameter, parameter prompt, whether it's a drop-down list or a multi-select? Part of that process is going to grab those values, loop through those values, and create that web content. And again, I'll show you demonstrations with some examples of what that could look like. So here's just, again, some example code where what I'm doing is building really a drop-down list of information based on, in this case, a report parameter and its default values. So when we talk about the viewer, so now we talk about the report list, we talked about the prompts, we talked about the viewer. Really, whether, again, you're calling back an individual report part, which would be maybe just a table or graph, whether you're doing a mashup of different sets of information. In the end, really what you want to come back with is an HTML view that you can then embed and contain within your portal or software as a service application. So this is just a quick example, again, of in this case, it's a Google dashboard where I've embedded a Webby report into one of its web gadgets so that I can present that alongside some other information, whether it be articles or notepads and community information. So again, the power of that SDK framework is you can use this same type of functionality of pulling information out of your BI system, plugging it into another portal and application, and then doing that across many different applications. So you're not limited to just one system like SharePoint. You could use the same information in SharePoint, Salesforce.com, custom portals, etc. So it's reusable many times over. So an example of that, again, of grabbing a web part, you might want to put some controls in there around, hey, if that report doesn't exist, or you want to communicate to the user that says, hey, this information is no longer available. But if it is available, again, using an HTML view, present that information. And in the case, for instance, of a Webby report part, there's actually two parts. There's a header and a body. So we actually grab that information from the header, which will pull the really the style sheet or style of that report, which will control its look and feel, and then the body information, which will actually grab, again, the table or graph that you're pulling out of that Webby report. So the key context here is you're building a portal or software as a service, but how you design those graphs and reports and content is totally in control of the report development that you're doing already in the business object system. So you don't have to change tools, you don't have to retrain. You can use the Web Intelligence, Crystal, and Excelsius technology you're already familiar with. Again, some do's and don'ts. Modifying the query. So there's some things that were very powerful in 3.1 that are not necessarily available in 4.0. So it's key to understand the differences in those. So things like modifying Webby reports are much more restrictive in the 4.0 platform. There's some new ways coming, but understanding what you can and can't do if you're planning an upgrade is really important. Again, where do you store the application settings? I mentioned that before. Rather than building it within the application, build that abstraction into XML or a database layer. And understanding where do I store that information? Do I have application-specific sessions or application-specific settings or session-specific settings? When you're developing that platform, you may have things that are changing often, and you may have things that will never change within that particular logon session. So again, those are some best practices, and I'll show you in a demo how those would fall out. Again, running statistics on the CMS. A lot of people don't know that, especially over time, the business object systems can get bogged down a bit, and especially when you're working with an outward-facing customer portal, you really want it to be very fast. So understanding that you can continue to optimize that CMS database can have a great impact. Efficient object handling, whenever you're delivering a web application, even if you're just connecting through to business objects to generate the content, you really want to be clear on how you close out your user sessions. A couple different ways to do that, but really the main premise is that store your documents in session and then close those out when you log out. That's going to allow you to use effective caching and also keep your auditing accurate so you can tell what users are running what reports. Okay. And cache where you can. If you don't need to be running ad hoc reports against the database, pre-schedule them. If they're pre-scheduled once within, say, a day, then there's some caching you can do to pull that content out. I'll show you some examples of what that looks like. And then when you're using, especially when you're using the SDK, there's certain fields within the CMS database that should be indexed. So this kind of goes along with running statistics. You want to make sure that you're analyzing your business objects database the same way you analyze your source database, so that it is returning those objects, those scheduled instances, as quickly as possible. And you want to use ID and GUID fields, which are more likely to be indexed and more efficient when you're pulling that information back. So again, some examples of what this would look like. So a lot of times when we're working with customers, what we're doing is they've got their business object system on their internal network. They've got a firewall, and then what they're looking for is a portal or software as a service offering out to users that are outside of that firewall. So again, we use that DMZ area to deliver that application. So what's nice is your business object system and your databases are still inside your network and are protected. And then that SDK framework I was mentioning, that's the piece that's outside, and it's a trusted application. That's the only thing that has access to your business object system. So this allows you to share reports and dashboards to external users, has security access above the security of your normal business objects InfoView or BI Launchpad. Having direct portal or API access is important, and the key is to leverage all your business object security. So your users, your groups, and your folders all would stay within business objects. And then the key is to have interfaces for all types. So really understand, what are your users running? Are they all running browsers, or can they be on alternative devices, mobile, tablets, or kiosks even? And understand the formats that people use. Do they always run it out to Excel? Do they want to export out to PDF? What are those formats that are needed? And these are, again, some things that we have some packaged solutions for, that if you're looking for more of a buy solution, we can help deliver. And then auditing, again, understanding who has access to this information, and when did they access it, especially for healthcare and HIPAA compliance. This is a, a key component to understand where and when this information is accessed. And obviously, scheduling a dashboard or scheduling a distribution of a report and emailing it out, you've lost control over that. So when you're working with software as a service portals, you really want to have it be centralized and keep that auditing information tight and available. And then full event notifications. So more and more we see that there's key information within your databases that can tell a user when to come to the portal or tell the user when to run a report. So we really push to look for those opportunities that we can use a real-time component to track that data and get that user engaged. It's just a huge advantage over just putting out a portal and expecting them to come to it and find that nugget of gold that's going to really show its value. So again, the content generators we're talking about here, your Crystal reports, Web Intelligence, Excelsius, maybe you've created web services or even web applications and you want to put them all together. How am I going to present that? You could use the InfoView as a container, especially when 4.0, the Launchpad gives a lot more flexibility in how you organize your information. You may have already moved to Salesforce.com and you've got information there that you need to see right beside information that's in your own internal databases. A lot of companies are going to SharePoint but having difficulty integrating that and really showing the information within their BI systems. I'll show you an example of a dashboard launch portal, which is again, an outward-facing portal architecture that we developed. And then you may have developed your own custom portal using either open source or custom-built containers. So some examples now, as I'll show you, is you may want to think about how much information can I show on the screen. In addition to running a single Webby report, there's a lot of different ways to show multiple sets of information from multiple tools and multiple sources on a single screen. So understanding that layout, what is that dashboard view, is a key part of designing the right solution. Are you going to use Webby, or are you going to use Webby and Excelsius, or a mix of both? Do you need to embed this within another application? So again, I'll show you a Salesforce.com example in a moment. But you may have an internal or external application that you want to embed your dashboards in. And again, we touched on caching before, so really thinking about how quickly do I need to present this information to get the right response from my users. And then drilling down. Do I want to drill down to a report? Do I want to drill down to another report part? Do I want to drill down to another view within that same container? These are all the parts of the things that you'll be thinking about as you deliver these types of systems. And then I mentioned prompts before. What we see in these multi-tenant software as a service platforms is a need for just a higher end of prompt features, more like what you would see not in a BI tool, but in a web application, which is really what you're delivering. So in addition to building prompt screens that automatically read the parameters out of the report as they're designed, we develop things like hidden parameters that pass information to the reports at runtime and secure the data so that you don't have to continue to modify the database or Webby universe in order to secure that data for a multi-tenant system. Dynamic parameters, being able to dynamically set the default view of a user based on maybe what their favorite products are. These are some things that you'd expect when you go to like Amazon.com, that it tracks what your favorites are. Being able to provide that within a BI portal can be just a huge advantage. And then can I save my settings and share them within other people within my company? There's a concept called parameter sets that allows you to do that. As well as columns and filtering. So I'm going to jump into the demo here, and I'm going to use kind of two different examples. So this is Salesforce.com. So as I mentioned, what I've done here is I have a mashup of different content. I have a set of information a set of information to deliver some chatter information. I've got some dashboards down here mashing up different content. So what I've delivered here is a mashup between some Salesforce information and some business objects information. So I'm going to go into my account, for instance, and I've got my Acme Widget House, my favorite client, and I just love to sell them my products. So I go into that account, and I really want to go and do some sales calls. So maybe before I do that, though, what I want to see is I want to see what is their accounts receivable. So I might have a graph that's connecting my financial data, which is definitely not going to get uploaded into the cloud, but I want to see that right beside my sales and CRM data, which is out in the cloud. So to the user, they just want to see this information side by side. To the BI architect, they have to be very careful about where this data is. So by connecting an SDK framework, you're able to call that information out of that secure system based on my login and that trusted application and present that right alongside for the user. So they can make a decision that says, hey, their accounts receivable is getting higher and higher. Maybe I need to talk to accounting and find out what the billing status is before I keep selling them new products. So another example is, again, dashboards. So maybe I want to mash up some different sources of information, some that come from Excelsius, Web Intelligence, from Salesforce.com, and you can create this whole mashup of information. And again, I'm using Salesforce here. This could really be any different type of portal with any different type of information. So here's that report list we talked about. It says, okay, I'm in Salesforce, but I want to get access to some reports that are connected to different systems. So in this case, again, I can run my individual reports based on my security, and now I've configured this application to run the prompt screen right in the window. And I have some of those advanced features, being able to pull back the prompts that I've already pre-selected. I've already told what columns and sorts I'd like my Webby report to run on, and maybe I want to run this out to PowerPoint. So now I can just run this report right within Salesforce, right within my software as a service application. But really what it's doing is it's sending that call out to the business object system, pulling back that information, and putting it out into the format that the user wants. Okay, so I'm going to come here and pull up my PowerPoint. And no data in this report, but you can see how it created a slide that I can now include into my PowerPoint information. I'm going to go back and actually change that data, pull back some other information, so the user can either type it in directly into the prompts as you'd expect, or have different interfaces to pull back that information. And we talked about understanding how are users going to access this. Are they always going to log it into a portal, or are they going to access this across a mobile device? These are some of the key things you need to think about as you connect to that system with your software as a service platform. So I can pull back this report, and I can do certain things with it, like export it, go across pages, etc. We talked about dashboarding. Again, understanding what is the interface that you'd like to present that information in. Is it a multi-part dashboard, or is it something where the user has more control over it? So here's some examples of some things we've done that allow you to show Excelsius dashboards, again, connected to your system, and or individual metrics if you want to break it down into specific metrics. So these are just, again, some different ways that you can present your information. Okay. And again, just to jump to a totally different example, again, when you're calling an SDK framework, we talked about how do you connect the system. So what we've tried to do is really keep it very simple in the same way that maybe you have an OpenDoc call. How can I call back that report list or an individual report prompt screen and embed that within my software system? So you can see here is just a quick example in my Google dashboard where I can pull back a report and give it the information to authenticate that user, tell it what format to bring back, and it's going to embed that functionality in. So again, this same call that I ran before in Salesforce is also available to run in this other portal. So I didn't have to change languages. It's still my business object system. It's still the same report. But now, using that framework concept, I can then embed it within multiple applications. And then we talked about direct. So maybe you're not embedding it, but what you're looking to do is monetize on your business object system. And you want to provide a way for users to log in, get access to certain information, and pull that back from reports that you create. So there's just another example of where you can, again, present that information. So I've gone a little bit over in terms of getting into detail. Again, we're very excited that we see a lot of companies taking their business object system and creating these monetized, for-profit portals, or again, competitive advantage portals, where they're delivering the information out in a secure way to their customers. So we'll look forward to hearing from you. Jessica, I'm going to open it up to any questions at this time.
All right, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. We did have a question regarding the drill down functionality and the SDK using graphs. Someone wanted to know if we had any sample code.
Sure. Yeah, there's sure, and yeah, let's get their contact information. So let me dive into a quick example here. So there's a couple different ways to do drilling. This is actually a Webby report here that we've put into what we call our dashboard effects portal, which is a Flash-based portal that allows you to kind of zoom in very easily. Again, the idea here is, you can create drill downs, which either go to specific reports, and those, again, what we promote is you use the same functionality to call the main report as you call the secondary report. So I can definitely send you some examples. And actually, the example call is something like this. It would be like call report. And then what you do is you would send different parameters. What you could also do is if you wanted to go into maybe the interactive viewer of Web Intelligence or Crystal Viewer, you could then integrate your top level into into either an OpenDoc call or what we do is a interactive viewer call, which gives a little more limited functionality to the user. You may not want to give them the full rights to create reports and modify reports from the interactive viewer, so you might want to give them a more limited view. But really, it's a hyperlink, and yeah, we could definitely go into more detail on that. So let me just wrap up with a couple last points. Again, the idea here is how can we take this system, which can normally take anywhere for a larger system 6 to 9 months. So what we try to do is help people reduce that time to market, get you out there, and reduce the cost of building it. What we've seen is up to 50% compared to a full building from scratch solution. Again, the idea here behind the buy versus build decision is, do you want to build everything and support it internally versus have enterprise-grade support to your solution from an SAP certified partner. And again, you have options in terms of installing it on-premise or out in the cloud, depending on your requirements. So feel free to reach out with us, and again, we'll reach out to everybody, and appreciate your time.